Hello there, and welcome to week 3 of the Shirley Jackson marathon. And today we're going to be talking about Hangsaman, which I'm super excited about. And Hangsaman is quite a difficult novel to talk about. It's quite difficult to interpret, purposefully so, because we are going from the perspective of Natalie, who is not well at all. Now, there are interpretations of this book that say everything that happens is in the wake of the implied sexual assault or rape that happens at the party her parents throw before she goes to college. I completely disagree with that. I think if you want to interpret this novel, you have to come at it a completely different way. Not that the assault helps, it doesn't, especially not her family's reaction to it, where she comes down the following morning with a bruised face and they just don't say anything about it. That, though, is more indicative of what's already gone on in the family than anything else. I think when you interpret this novel, you have to take into account the song that is quoted on the first page, and that song is Hangman, which is basically about someone hanging from a gallows tree and abandoned to their fate. It's clear from the beginning that Natalie has been ill for a very long time. It is clear that the family dynamic is very dysfunctional, that Mr. Waites is controlling, that Mrs. Waites is a mess, that the only normal member of the family is Bud, who feels secure enough to defy them and refuse to do things which Natalie is clearly resentful of, but also envious of. She wants to be able to do that. When we look at Natalie from the beginning of the book, she says that she only feels like she's been conscious since she was 15. It's a very interesting word to use. And since then, she's been able to keep secrets in her mind, even from her father, who wants her to write like he does, and he critiques her work every morning from her notebooks, and that whole thing is quite uncomfortable to read. And Natalie sees herself as being outside of herself. It's clear that her vision of herself is not from within, she's seeing herself out here, and not only that, she's investing in a fantasy world. While she's talking to her parents at the breakfast table, she's also talking to a detective that she knows is not there. He's accusing her of the murder of her lover. It's kind of this fantasy that she's got going on. And when she goes to college, this fantasy world that she's built up, as she unravels mentally, becomes indistinguishable from the real world. And that is not due to the sexual assault. That is clearly a catalyst for something. But the college is the ultimate destroyer in this scenario. She indicates that she's been in a situation like that before because she's terrified of going to college, and she's indicated that she's been in a situation before where she's had to become used to a place simply by not being able to leave there. I think that's a huge marker for her mental state. And of course the reader, following her journey through the college, your ability to notice what is real and what isn't sort of disintegrates with hers, because she's the narrator and she's not able to distinguish in the end between what's real and what's not. And so whilst there are indications that there are things that are going on that are not actually happening, it is quite difficult to distinguish them from things that are. But what is clear is that she's deeply unhappy. At one point she writes to her father basically begging to come home, and he responds to her saying that this was all part of his plan for her and that he was expecting her to be unhappy at the beginning. Which is just, if you needed to know why she's a mess, there it is right there. Door's been slammed on her, she's been left to hang. Natalie is expected to just get on with things, and so we end up in a situation at the end of the book which is very important to the interpretation of the book as a whole, I think. How do you do this without giving everything away? Okay. Natalie goes somewhere at the end of the novel with someone. Whether this someone that she goes with is a person who exists is up to the reader to interpret. This is me trying not to give stuff away and not doing very well at it. But suffice it to say, the final chapter appears to suggest that Natalie has come through things. But I think at this point we're established enough in the fact that Natalie cannot tell fantasy from reality to suggest that this conclusion is not actually true. I interpreted it that she was imagining this last chapter, and that the reality was entirely different. The reality was that she was still where she is, the second to last chapter. I may be wrong. If you know what I'm talking about and you wish to discuss it without spoilers, please comment below. I think that Hangsaman is one of the most effective explorations of that kind of mental disintegration. That's Hangsaman, brilliant, read it, awesome. Next week we come to the final book in the Shirley Jackson marathon. It is my favourite and it is an absolute corker, and that's The Bird's Nest. So thank you for watching this week, and I hope to see you next week when I discuss The Bird's Nest.